Okay, so just wanted to take a few minutes to show some of the functionality of we've got a IotexDAO based Internet of Things based DAO. So essentially, this is the front page, and then you can connect or disconnect to your MetaMask. So I've already connected actually, but I could connect to a new address here, and it should update. So you can switch here and connecting through MetaMask. So basically, what we've got is everybody will have a profile, so a couple of these I've already pre-minted some NFTs. So what each one has a score depending on what the data was. The data is looking at the acceleration. It's taking the accelerometer events and looking at instances of what would be extreme acceleration. So what would be defined as extreme, and what is the penalties, and how you get the score, that's actually determined by the DAO. So if you go to the DAO contract, which I've verified and put up on Coven, you can do things like get acceleration levels. So you can put what are the acceleration levels where you want the breakpoints. And in this case we chose 20 was the lowest one. So if you're under 20 you would not get a score penalty. If you're over 20 you would get the minimum penalty. 30 would be the next level, and then over 60 would be like slamming on your brakes or having to floor it. But that can be set by the owner. So I've already set some of these. I've also set the cost, which you will see in a minute here. It's read into a table, but you set the cost as well. So 0.1 ETH to up to 0.2 ETH. Of course, in a real world situation, you would maybe have more ETH, but I wanted to keep it relatively cheap so that most of my addresses can afford it. You have certain rounds. So once you have a payout, then you would go to a new round of the DAO, and you can get the members. So right now the DAO only has one member. So when I query this, it gives me back the address of the only member, but this will change. Speaking of penalty levels and ratings, so penalty levels are 1 is the first penalty, then 2, because these add up, and then 4, 7, and then 12. So very high acceleration events would have a penalty score of 12. Low acceleration events would have a 0 if you're under, or the first one would only have a 1. So you can set the penalty levels. All this can be set, etc. And of course then you have the owner, because only the owner can set some of these things. So that's kind of where we're at. And then even though we won't be able to show all this functionality, but I've got the functionality as well to have a payout cap, so where you could pay out in case it is kind of like this is supposed to be a DAO co-op. So you pay in, and you pay in, of course, a higher rate if you have a higher score, which I'll go over in a minute. But there's also a payout where you can make claims against the DAO. So the DAO, you pull together these people, they've all got the IoTech NFTs, they join the DAO, they make a payment according to their risk. Obviously lower risk, or what lower score means lower acceleration events, means higher rating, means a lower payment, whereas people who are higher risk would have a higher payment. And then you can have a certain payout amount, and then at the very end, if you have been a safe driver and haven't had a payout, you will get a certain amount of the money back from the DAO, etc. So that's kind of how this goes. It's more like a co-op, but I'm going to show you that. But that's, if you're wondering where these scores come from and where these costs and acceleration levels, all this is set on the contract that I've got now verified here. Separately, the NFT contract I've also got here. So the NFT contract, of course, is kind of just your standard NFT. It's got a token URI, which you'll see. Of course, it's got owner of, balance of, all this stuff. It's got a few custom ones, but for the most part, it's pretty standard. ERC 721 with a few extra pieces like last timestamp used, because for the DAO you can't have you have to take the most recent NFT, so that's why it's got last timestamp. And then there's a verify contract. So this verify contract allows the DAO or the NFT to actually check that what you're passing in is correct information, because as we'll see in a minute in the flow, if you first get data for the flow, in particular for the NFT, you get data for the flow, but even for the DAO, and you could either choose to mint or not. Like if I have a really bad score, I might choose not to mint. I might choose to try a different time frame or to just not mint at all. I don't want to waste my money if I'm going to pay a high rate. So then how do you know that you're passing in the correct token URI and the correct information? The server key will use this verify contract for that, and we should see some of that behind the scenes in the node. On our node, in here we'll have node server JS running. I've actually already got it running. So yeah, so those are the three contracts we have. So the NFT contract, the verify contract, and the DAO contract, and those are all verified and submitted right now on Coven. But there's also in the script you can go to the IotexDAO testnet as well. I'm just using Coven because I had a lot of test ETH on Coven, so it's just easier to use for the demo. Alright, so you've got your app, and this person's minted 2 NFTs. So this one was a score that was a little bit higher. The rating was only great because the average score was 2.69, so it was 269 was those penalty levels, and then 2.69, and then it says NFT number 1 for this user. And if you go here, you can actually click. So all this is actually saved on IPFS using a Pinata script in the background. So you've got all the stuff there. You've actually got the image URI that is reading in is stored here. That's also on IPFS and stored through Pinata, the images, and you can choose those. Some of the rating, the levels, the timestamp, the average, the runs, and the score, all that's in the attributes, and then you have a description and a name, which is typical ERC 721 metadata. So that's what's going on there, and you can open it up, and of course this one has a different image, and this one has a much better rating. In fact, I made the data really, really low for this person, so this would be like really safe driving. So this person actually had a score of 0, so that's about as good as you can get. And for that period of data that was used. So that's the metadata for this one. And of course the image, if you were to go here, I won't go here because it's kind of slow when it's not a gateway. I have to actually pick a gateway to make it faster and performant. But if you were to load this into, say, Brave, a browser that has a IPFS specifications kind of built in, then it might take a second at first, or you'd have to use a gateway, HTTP gateway. You could load this in and it would show the image there. So that's what's going on, and then I can change. So if I change to a user that's also minted, I think I've got one other user that's already minted an NFT. It's this one. So he minted an NFT already. He's got a good score as well. And again, you could go and see the metadata there, and it just links that. Okay, so it's just a JSON description, kind of what you would use on OpenSea or whatever. So again, that's just done through a Pinata script. So let's actually get to the minting. Oh, one last thing is the DAO. Only one person's joined the DAO, and this just shows I have some pictures that go with the whichever address is there. So that was the picture of the first one. So this is giving you the address and the NFT that was used to join the DAO. So notice she had 2 NFTs. The second one was chosen. She didn't like the first score, so she tried the second NFT. It was a better rating, which means it will be a cheaper price. So how can we see that? So I go here. So what we've got is, let me go to the other user there. Okay, so took a second to load up, but so yeah, so it says the device IMEI if they have one, so it checks if they have a device. It also checks what their latest start date was and makes sure that you can only pick after that latest start date. You can't go back for older data. And then it shows those penalty levels we put in earlier, 1 to 12, and the acceleration levels at which they're at. And then the rating and also the cost. So your average score is less than 2. Then your pristine, we saw earlier, 2.69. Between 2 and 3 was great. So that if they would have used that NFT, it would have been 0.14 ETH. Good is bigger than 3 but less than 5. That will cost 0.18 ETH. Fair is between 5 and 7. That would be 0.19 ETH. And then poor is anything over 7, and they have to pay 0.2 ETH. Of course, again, that's set by the DAO, so you would obviously probably do a study and see what what level you need here. These are kind of all clustered together, so it's probably not a real good real life scenario. But again, I just did that because I didn't want the board and fair drivers to not be able to afford it, because I've got a limited number of Coven test ETH. But yeah, so that's kind of what's going on there. So so essentially, we could go as well to a person who doesn't have an NFT yet. So for instance, account 5, I believe. Yeah. So this person also has a device. So device is IMEI, but this person does not have any NFTs minted. So if we were to go to their profile, it should be blank. It is. So we were to go here, what we would do is you have to have 100 and less than 500. So that's just for calculation purposes. And then your start date, you can't pick stuff from like 4 years ago, so you have to pick either up to your latest one, or this one says your start date must be after December 5th. So what we'll do is we'll pick something like, say, August 30th. Okay, and then need to browse for a picture. So maybe I've got some pre-pictures here of driving, so maybe I'll do Weasley here. So we'll open this up and see. Okay, so it previews it here, and I've got a start date and an image, and I'll just leave it as 100. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mint, and what we can see here is it's first uploading this through the Pinata script to IPFS, and it takes a second because it's actually pinning it as well. And then once that asynchronous call comes back, it's got some other things: console logged, number of runs, what was the start date. Okay, so it eventually calculated the score. The score was over 3, and the average is 3.28. And then what it did is it pinned not only the image, but then pinned this metadata to this IPFS and told you the rating. So you could hit OK. But it did not actually mint the NFT, because maybe you wouldn't like this and you want to now pick a different time frame. But if you do like the NFT, then you can say mint now, and you will pay to mint the NFT, and it takes a second. And we will give it a minute. Coven's actually been kind of slow today, so okay, so minted, so it's confirmed, so it went through. Now it actually gives me an option and says, hey, you can actually join or update the DAO, by the way, because now you do have an NFT, so you have to have an NFT. So if we were to go to the profile, it now says this is NFT number 1 for this address. It gives me the score, the rating, and it's pulling that info from the metadata. And if I was to open up now, I would have the metadata, which is this address, description, image, which is the Weasley GIF, and then it has the score, the runs, the timestamp, the average, the rating, and the level. So 3 of 5. Okay, so that is using the Pinata script to upload that. And of course I could go, if I didn't like this and I wanted to maybe try a newer, you have to use a newer time frame, but you could do that as well. So so again, now this is part of the profile, but I haven't joined the DAO. So I can come back here, and it says, hey, by the way, you should be paying 0.18 ETH, which I think I have enough money to pay for. I should have checked that beforehand. Yeah, I do, for this account. So I can now, if I'm okay with this and I don't want to try to remint another NFT, I can do, so you see the time is now just saying it has to be after September 1st, because I use September 1st, 12:33 p.m. or 12:32 p.m. actually, must have been the last timestamp that I used for my data, so I would have to mint after that. But what I can do is just now join or update the DAO, because I have an NFT, so that pops up. And then when you hit join or update the DAO, there's some calculations that go on behind the scenes. basically double checking your levels and some other things, making sure everything's going all right server side, and it takes a second. It also gives you an S, V, and R parameter for the verify, because you have to, the verify contract's using EC recover to double check the server key, and then once everything's good, it's saying, yep, you're a level 3, and according to our cost, you should be paying 0.18, which is good. And do you want to confirm, right? Do you want to actually go through and join the DAO? And you could reject if you realize that that's not what you want to do, or you could confirm and hit OK. So now you will be joining the DAO, and again, it takes a second, especially because Kogan's been a little bit slow today. So okay, so it's confirmed. So now, if all went well, you have now joined the DAO, and now we have this extra. We have 2 people who have joined the DAO. User 5 that has their image, and then user 1. And it's got the information. So we see we've got 1 pristine user who paid a lower amount and 1 good user, and of course you could just keep going, different people. You can only have, though, the contract does only have where per address you can only have 1 for any round. So if I was to update, and again it takes some time, and the video is running long, so I'm not going to do that, but basically I could, if I'm this user, it would replace this NFT. And in fact, if I had a better rating, it would give me a little bit of a refund, which you can look in the contract and see there's a rebate option where I would actually, instead of paying 0.18, if I then had a better driving record, pristine, I would actually get a rebate as long as I hadn't had a payout. But yeah, so that's how this works. So you mint your NFT according to the driver safety, and it's doing all these calculations, getting the average. It's uploading the image that you choose and uploading all this data to IPFS, and then using Pinata to pin. And then it's getting these verify parameters, is using the verify contract to make sure that you're actually passing in the correct information when you go to mint or join the DAO, and then it's allowing you to mint, and then it's lets you see it in your profile, your NFTs and links to them, and has the data and these cards, or in the DAO holding when you join the DAO, you will see who's in the DAO here. And then the final thing, and then I'll cut the video off, is if you look at the contract, as I said, I'm not going to show all this just because it's kind of behaving slow and it's going long, but there's a payout. You can actually pay out if somebody was to claim, make a claim, you could pay out up to a certain amount, and it tracks that. And then at the very end, you could actually, the DAO itself would pay out the rewards according to your safe driving record, and the safe drivers get a better reward or whatever. And that's it. So that's kind of how this runs. So hopefully that's an interesting application of TrueStream data and IotexDAO data. And this is what we call the Pebble Tracker DAO, Pebble DAO. Thanks.